This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
Where the line between neighbor and nightmare is razor thin. Welcome to Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski, featuring former prosecutor and defense attorney Eric Faddis.
The case of Richard Allen, it is going on, and more questions and answers being brought out in that courtroom, and it really starts to make me wonder, are we going to have a jury that can settle on a single answer here? Joining me to discuss, Eric Faddis, defense attorney and former prosecutor. This is really very interesting. We don't have any sort of cameras in the courtroom, so we're relying on the reporters and the people on the ground. We have attorney Bob Mata, who's there for us right now and checking it out every single day in the courtroom. And what we're learning is kind of interesting. It seems to be going in the way of the defense better than I was expecting it to, just with seeming the lack of evidence that the prosecution has tying Richard Allen to the crime. What's your thoughts thus far?
Yeah, I think the prosecution kind of came in perhaps a little overconfident because they had the alleged confessions, but you got to tie that to objective corroborative evidence to show those confessions are reliable. And I'm not sure how much of that they have. And so I think sort of people are wondering, like, hey, where's the substance here? What's really going to tie this guy besides someone who might be experiencing mental health issues giving an alleged confession?
Judging by all of the decisions that were made by Judge Gall in the years leading up to this, and just the overall attitude and decorum that we had seen out of the prosecution, out of the investigators, it was very much a, like, screw you, we have our case. We're not going to listen to any of your motions. We're not going to grant any of your requests. We got it. And now here we are. And it's like, I'm still waiting. Like, do you have anything that you're bringing to the table here? Or is it's pretty much everything we speculated on that we already knew they had, which wasn't much. And I'm wondering how much of an echo chamber they ended up finding themselves in these past many years to think that their case was as strong as it is. And now we're seeing this thus far. It's not very strong.
Yeah, no, Tony, I remember when I was a prosecutor, sometimes, you get in this group think mindset. I tried to stay out of it, but some folks would. And they would say, oh, gosh, this case is strong. It's got a confession. That's all you need. It's a slam dunk. Well, that's not always all you need. And so it's easy to sort of, be among people who are agreeing with you and saying, yeah, your case is strong. Don't sweat it. But once you get to the jury trial, it's sometimes a different story.
What's your take on how the Richard Allen confessions are playing thus far to that jury? We've seen literally a note. It was a reporter tried to recreate what it looked like. And it looked like that of a kindergartner who was confessing to stealing some cookies or something. It was just, the writing was all over the board. It was different sizes. It was on different lines. It didn't really make a lot of sense. And then at the end, I hope I can tell the parents I'm sorry. It did not seriously look like any sort of confession from any sort of sane person. I know they've added in there saying, well, he said it 60 times as well. Still haven't heard that. We still haven't even heard any sort of audio. If these things happened over the phone, we haven't heard that either. I think that would be kind of a strong piece of evidence that the prosecution would want to bring in there for these slam dunk confessions that they have. Would they not?
Yeah, exactly. And the prosecution is going to want to try to present evidence that Richard Allen was of sound mind when he was giving these alleged confessions. And that's going to be tough to do as well, especially when you look at what that note looks like. So, a confession is strong. That's always going to have an impact on the jury. No doubt about it. But it's got to be something that's reliable, and it can't be something that's all over the board and questionable.
If the audio of him giving those confessions sounds anything like those notes look, it's not going to be very compelling. Why do you think we haven't seen any of this audio yet? Is it going to come out at the very end? Is like their, haha, got you, slam dunk? Or, I mean, we've already talked about this stuff in court. I would think it might have already been, brought to light by now. Or are we not going to hear these confessions?
I would think the prosecution would have to try and offer any audio confession that they have to the jury. And it's got to be scrutinized if they do that. We've already several days into the trial. Maybe they're saving it for like a big bang at the end. But I think this jury is sort of looking for, hey, what can I hang my hat on if I'm going to vote guilty? And I'm not sure they have a coat rack to do that.
That's a weird thing. They don't really seem to, but they are so gung-ho on their prosecution and their attitude of thinking they really got this. Let's talk about no DNA in this case as well. If we have someone who was, they were cut up, they had their throats slashed multiple times, clothes taken off, put on the wrong people. This was a physical situation. This wasn't, somebody just shot him in the back of the head or something or whatnot. There's somebody, whoever did this, got physically involved with them. And there's zero DNA on the victims. There's some hair from a family member that one of them apparently had in their hand, which I find a little weird. But there's no DNA. But this is not always the case. Koberger as well. There's DNA on the knife sheath, but there's no DNA on the victims themselves, at least that they ever found. So it doesn't necessarily mean there has to be, but is that kind of weird in a situation like this?
I think the jury might find it weird. There's something that in law that's termed like the CSI effect. Jurors want to see forensics. They want to see technical analysis that ties a defendant to a crime. Here, like you said, this was messy. You would expect either DNA transfer onto the skin or onto the clothing. You would expect possibly hairs being left, other things like that. And there's just no evidence of that. And especially when you have kind of a flimsy case that rests on a questionable confession, you want to beef it up with something objective, and they haven't come with it so far.
And that's where things start to feel less like a trial for justice and more like a desperate attempt to make anything, stick. The case against Richard Allen is beginning to look like a tangled web of questionable confessions, missing evidence, and prosecutorial overconfidence, to put it lightly. We're not just watching a legal battle unfold. We're watching what happens when a system becomes more invested in proving itself right than finding the truth. Think about it. No DNA, no reliable timeline, no airtight confession, and yet the prosecution keeps pushing forward like a gambler doubling down on a bad hand. Why? Because once you've gone too far down a path, admitting you're wrong isn't just embarrassing. It can be career suicide. And that classic human flaw, that one right there, when you've sunk in so much time, energy, and public trust into one narrative, there is no graceful way to pivot. Either push through and hope the jury doesn't notice the holes, or you risk everything and admit you've been chasing the wrong lead for years. It's been easy to see how things could have gone sideways. Law enforcement was under massive pressure for a long time to bring justice for the brutal murders of two innocent young girls. In a case like this, the public wants blood. They want closure. They want it now. But when the investigation becomes a performance for the sake of appearances, the truth often gets lost in the shuffle. The real tragedy here isn't just about whether Richard Allen is guilty or innocent. It's about what happens when the pursuit of justice turns into a spectacle, where the stakes are not just a man's freedom, but the integrity of the entire process. If Allen isn't the right man, the real killer is still out there. And every day spent chasing the wrong lead is a day wasted in catching the person responsible. And if Allen is the right man, the prosecution handling of this case might just botch the whole thing, leaving the community without the justice it deserves. The question we need to ask is, at what point does the system admit it's made a mistake, or has the narrative gone so far that the truth just no longer matters? As long as someone, anyone, maybe CVS pharmacy tech, Richard Allen, takes the fall. But in the end, the worst kind of justice is the kind built on shaky evidence and stubborn pride. And the ones who suffer the most, the families left behind, still wondering, what might have been if things had been done right from the start. I'm Tony Brueski. If you want to stay up to date on this case and the others that we cover, be sure to subscribe. Because this story, it is far from over. The truth, well, that might still be waiting to be found. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching. Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
You're in the thick of a true crime saga, every detail sinking in, and then, wham, a commercial about something you couldn't care less about. It's like being served a microwaved dinner at a 5-star restaurant. But it doesn't have to be this way. Go for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. With True Crime Today Premium Plus, you get uninterrupted, ad-free episodes, extended interviews that dig even deeper into the muck, and early access so you can brag to your friends. It's like ordering the secret menu at a crime buffet. So, search for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and savor every twisted detail without interruption.